After putting Zara to sleep, Amina lay down beside her and stared at the ceiling. Tears were forming in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She had given birth to Zara when she was just 18 years old. It was a single moment of foolishness that cost her everything: her family, her education, and her dreams. Her parents threw her out the moment they discovered she was pregnant. Her boyfriend, too, the one who had promised to love her forever, disappeared. Amina was left with nothing but a growing child in her womb. And so, she struggled to survive. She had worked long hours, doing whatever she could find, from selling oranges by the roadside, washing people's clothes, and later cleaning offices. She had hoped that one day someone would come and love her, but the men she met always left when they found out that she had a child. "You are beautiful, but I am sorry. I cannot raise another man's child. You are a good woman, but my family will never accept you. You are a single mother?" "Ah, that is a problem," these men would always say. Amina faced rejection after rejection, and she had to stop hoping for a future. But Zara never stopped praying for her. Every night she would pray for her mother. "Dear God, please bless my mommy. Let her find a good man who will love and take care of her." Amina sighed and turned to look at her daughter, who was already asleep. Maybe it was time to start over. Maybe it was time to leave this city, to find a place where no one knew her past. The next morning, she took all the money she had saved up and boarded a bus to Abuja with Zara. The city of Abuja was bigger, louder, and full of opportunities. And once again, Amina felt hopeful. She and Zara moved into a small apartment in a quiet area. The rent was high, but it was safer than the slums where they had lived before. Fortunately, within weeks, Amina found a job as a receptionist at a big company. It wasn't glamorous, but it was better than scrubbing floors. The pay was good enough to also send Zara to school. For the moment, life seemed to be getting better. And then one day, she met Chief Adebayo. It happened in the office. Chief Adebayo was one of the company's biggest clients. He was a well-respected man in his early 40s who carried himself with power and confidence. Amina was at her desk when he walked in. "Good morning, sir," she said. He stopped and looked at her. "You're new here?" "Yes, sir," she replied. He nodded and smiled. "What is your name?" "Amina, sir." "Nice name," he said before walking past her. It was a small interaction, but Amina noticed that after that day, Chief Adebayo seemed to take a special interest in her. Whenever he came to the office, he would stop to talk to her. "Have you eaten today?" "You look tired, Amina. You should rest more." At first, Amina thought nothing of it. Men had flirted with her before, but they always lost interest the moment they found out she had a child. Then one day he asked her to have lunch with him. She hesitated. "Sir, he smiled. "Amina, it is just lunch. No pressure." However, that was how it began. Lunch turned into dinner, and soon dinner turned into weekend outings. Then the outings turned into deep conversations. Before long, Amina found herself falling for him. For the first time in her life, a man treated her with true kindness and respect. But there was a problem. She never told him about Zara. At first, she meant to tell him, but the longer she waited, the harder it became. She was afraid. What if he leaves like the others? So she started lying. Chief Adebayo once asked her, "Do you have any family here?" But Amina quickly lied, "No, I moved here alone." The lie tasted bitter on her tongue, but she convinced herself that it was necessary. And then one evening, he proposed. "Amina, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Amina was shocked and emotional. She screamed, "Yes!" But reality set in. What about Zara? She had hidden her daughter for so long, and now the truth threatened to destroy everything. She knew she had to bring her in, but how? She paced up and down her room that night, thinking deeply. Then an idea came to her, a terrible and painful one. The next morning, she sat Zara down and held her hands. "Zara, listen to me carefully. From today, you will not call me mommy anymore. You will call me Amina." Zara's eyes widened. "But why?" "Because it is important. If anyone asks, tell them I am your auntie and you are my little maid." "But mommy, I am not a maid," Zara cried. Amina's heart broke, but she remained unshaken. "If you love me, Zara, you will do as I say. It is for our good." Zara wiped her tears and nodded. A few weeks later, Amina and Chief Adebayo had their beautiful wedding. She was now Madame Amina, the wife of a rich man. As for Zara, she brought her into the house and introduced her as the new housemaid. Zara stood quietly in the corner of the grand living room, holding a mop in her small hands. The house was enormous, bigger than any place she had ever seen. The floors were polished marble and shone so brightly that she could see her reflection in them. The furniture was expensive, and the walls were covered in beautiful paintings. But none of this made her happy, because the woman she had always known as Mommy was now her madame, and she was no longer Zara, her daughter. She was now Zara, the maid. Since the wedding, Amina had treated her like a stranger. She had given her a small room near the back of the house, far away from her luxurious bedroom with Chief Adebayo, and she had also given her a list of chores and strict instructions. "Do not call me Mommy. Don't talk too much. Don't let anyone find out the truth." At first, Zara thought it was a joke or temporary. She tried to talk to her mother the way she always did, but Amina would snap at her, shouting, "Have you finished cleaning? Go and mop the floor now." Zara didn't understand. Why was her mother pretending? Why was she making her live like a servant in her own home? She had no answers. Fortunately for her, there was one person who was kind, Chief Adebayo. He noticed how hard-working she was, how she barely spoke, and how her clothes were old and worn out. One evening, as Amina and Chief Adebayo were having dinner, Zara came in to serve them water. "Sit down and eat with us," Chief Adebayo said kindly. Amina's spoon nearly dropped on the floor. "Ah, no, she's just a housemaid. She cannot eat with us." Zara looked at her mother, hoping she would change her mind, but Amina's face was hard. Chief Adebayo frowned. "But she's just a little girl, Amina." Amina smiled sweetly. "Don't worry, she's used to it." Zara swallowed her tears and walked away. Later that night, she sat in her dark room and cried into her pillow. "Why, Mommy? Why are you doing this to me?" But her mother never came to comfort her. She was too busy living her new life. Chief Adebayo was not a fool. From the moment Amina introduced Zara as the maid, something didn't sit right with him. She didn't look like the other maids he had employed before. She was too obedient, too quiet, and too sad. She never looked Amina in the eye when she called her madam, and she also had some similar features with Amina, like the same brown eyes, the same round face, and the same soft voice. One evening, as he sat in his study reading, he overheard two of the other maids gossiping. "Madame Amina treats that little girl so badly. It is not normal. Ah, I feel sorry for that child. Sometimes she even sleeps without eating." Chief Adebayo was uncomfortable. The next morning, he watched as Zara swept the front yard. The sun was hot, and sweat dripped down her small face, but she didn't complain. He called her, "Zara." Zara looked up quickly. "Yes, sir? Come and eat with me." She hesitated. "Sir, Madame will be angry." Chief Adebayo frowned. "Why? Have you done anything wrong?" She shook her head. "No, sir." "Then come and sit and eat with me," he said firmly. Slowly, Zara went and sat beside him. "How old are you?" he asked. "I am 12 years old, sir." Chief Adebayo raised an eyebrow. 12? You're just a child. You should be in school, not cleaning all day." Zara looked down. Chief Adebayo sighed. "Tell me the truth, my dear. Who are your parents?" Her lips trembled. She wanted to say it. She wanted to scream it. "Madame Amina is my mother." But her mother's words rang in her head. "Do not tell anyone, or we will lose everything and go back to square one." So she lowered her head and whispered, "I don't know, sir," but Chief Adebayo's suspicion only grew. Later that evening, Chief Adebayo confronted Amina. "Why do you treat that little girl so badly?" he asked, his voice firm. Amina looked up from her phone, feigning innocence. "What do you mean? She's just a maid." Chief Adebayo's eyes narrowed. "She's a child, Amina. You overwork her, and she's afraid of you. What is really going on?" Amina forced a smile. My dear, you're just being too kind. That girl is stubborn, and I'm only training her to be more responsible. No matter how Chief Adebayo tried to reason with her, Amina always found an excuse to justify her actions. It became worse. She wouldn't even allow Zara to eat until she finished all the chores. One evening, as Zara finished scrubbing the kitchen floor, she went to the dining room hoping to eat something. She saw a plate of rice and stew sitting on the table. Her stomach growled she had not eaten all day. Slowly, she reached for the plate and took a spoonful, but before she could even take a second spoon, a sharp slap landed on her face. "Thief!" Amina shouted, her voice filled with anger. Zara looked up, her eyes wide with shock. "Mommy, I said don't ever call me that!" Amina screamed. She grabbed Zara's hair and twisted it. Zara cried out in pain. "I was hungry," she sobbed. "You were hungry?" Amina sneered. "So you decided to steal food." She dragged Zara by the arm and pushed her to the ground. "You are a disgrace. You will go to bed hungry tonight. Maybe that will teach you a lesson." With that, she stormed out of the kitchen. Zara sat on the floor, crying softly. She didn't understand. She had prayed for her mother to find a good man, and now her mother had everything but she had nothing. The next morning, Zara dragged herself out of bed and started her chores. Her body ached, but she forced herself to keep moving. She was washing clothes outside when Chief Adebayo walked past. He stopped when he saw her small fingers scrubbing the fabric so hard that her knuckles had turned red. "Zara, stop that," he said. She froze, unsure of what to do. Chief Adebayo walked over and took her hands in his. "Look at your hands. They are bruised." Zara tried to pull away. "It's okay, sir." But Chief Adebayo frowned. "Did someone force you to do all this?" She quickly shook her head. No, sir." Chief Adebayo sighed. He knew she was lying. "Come inside with me." "But, sir?" "No arguments. Just follow me." Zara nervously followed him into the house. He led her to the dining table, where breakfast was still fresh. "Sit and eat," he ordered. Slowly, Zara picked up the spoon and started eating. Her hands shook as she scooped the food into her mouth. It had been so long since she had eaten a proper meal. Chief Adebayo watched her closely, his heart breaking. "Why is my wife treating this poor girl so badly?" he wondered. A few minutes later, Amina walked in. Her eyes widened when she saw Zara eating at the dining table. "What is going on here?" she demanded. "I told her to eat," Chief Adebayo said calmly. But she's just a maid," Amina protested. Chief Adebayo's eyes darkened. "She is a child, Amina. She's too young to be treated this way." Amina forced a smile. "My dear, you won't understand. I'm only training her." Chief Adebayo shook his head. "This is not training. This is punishment." One evening, Chief Adebayo was in his private room going through some documents when the head housekeeper, Mama Kemi, knocked on the door. "Sir, please, I need to tell you something," she said hesitantly. He gestured for her to sit. "Go on, Mama Kemi." She hesitated. "It is about Zara." Chief Adebayo sat up straight. "What about her?" Mama Kemi lowered her voice. "Sir, Zara is not a housemaid." Chief Adebayo frowned. "What do you mean?" The woman said, "Amina is not her auntie. She's her mother." For a moment there was complete silence. Then Chief Adebayo's eyes darkened. "Are you sure about this?" "I swear on my life, sir," the woman said. "I have seen the way she looks at Madame. I have heard her cry at night and beg her mother to love her again." Chief Adebayo's heart pounded. His mind went back to all the strange things he had noticed, the way Zara and Amina looked alike, the fear in the little girl's eyes, and the way Amina always avoided the topic. How could she do something so wicked? He thought. He nodded. "Thank you, Mama Kemi. You can go." As soon as she left, Chief Adebayo broke down. How did I marry a woman who could abandon and deny her own child? All for what? Thinking of it now, Chief Adebayo felt disgusted by Amina. Amina was in the master's room when she heard a knock at the door. She opened it and saw Chief Adebayo standing there, his face cold and unreadable. "Darling, it's you," she said, forcing a smile. Chief Adebayo didn't return the smile. "Sit down," he said firmly. Amina frowned, her heart beginning to race. "What is wrong? Tell me the truth," he said, his voice low and steady. "Who is Zara?" Amina's body stiffened. She swallowed hard, her mind scrambling for an explanation. I already told you, she's my distant niece." "You are a pathetic liar," Chief Adebayo interrupted, slamming his fist on the table. Amina jumped up in fear. "Please, I can explain." Chief Adebayo shook his head. "I don't want your explanations." Tears filled Amina's eyes. "I was only afraid. I was afraid you wouldn't marry me if you knew I had a child. That was why I lied." He looked at her, disgusted. "So you decided that treating her like your maid was the best thing you could do?" Amina fell to her knees, sobbing. "Please, I did it for us." Chief Adebayo looked at her with disappointment. "This marriage is over." Amina froze. "No, please." But Chief Adebayo shook his head. "You will leave this house tonight." Then he said something that made Amina's heart stop. "And you will go alone. Zara stays here with me." Amina's eyes widened in horror. "No, please, she's my daughter." Chief Adebayo folded his arms. "She's not your daughter. You said it yourself that she's your maid, so she will stay here and continue working for me." Amina's throat tightened. "Please, I was wrong." Chief Adebayo shook his head. "I don't care about your excuses. You had a child who loved you, who prayed for you, and you threw her away like trash. You don't deserve her." Amina's tears were uncontrollable. She turned to Zara, who stood quietly in the corner, watching. She crawled toward her, desperation in her voice. "Zara, my baby, please forgive me. I love you." Zara's lips trembled. "But why did you do it, Mommy?" Amina's shoulders shook as she cried. "I was afraid. I thought I would lose everything if I told the truth. I didn't want to raise any suspicion. That was why I had to be strict. I was selfish. Please forgive me." Chief Adebayo shook his head pitifully. "You had 6 months to change. For 6 months you could have shown this child love, but you chose to be wicked instead." He stepped aside and pointed to the door. "Leave my house." "Now," Amina cried, "but my daughter." "You said it yourself that she's your maid," Chief Adebayo interrupted. "And I don't send my maids away without notice, so she will stay with me." Amina almost fainted. The reality of her situation hit her hard. She had lost everything: her husband, her marriage, and now even her own child. With no other choice, she wiped her tears, packed her bag, and walked toward the door. Before stepping out, she turned back one last time, hoping that Chief Adebayo would change his mind. But he only looked at her with disgust, and Zara didn't even say a word to her. For the first few days after Amina left, Zara felt lost. She still woke up early, cleaned the house, and feared her mother's voice calling her. But Amina was gone, and Chief Adebayo was nothing like her mother. He treated her like a daughter. He enrolled her into a good school. Every morning, he made sure she had breakfast before school. He brought her back from school in the afternoon and spent the evenings with her. At first, Zara didn't know how to respond. She had spent so long being invisible that she didn't even know how to be loved again. One evening, Chief Adebayo took her shopping. "Pick anything you want," he said. Zara hesitated. "Anything?" "Yes, anything," he reassured her. She looked around the store and finally pointed at a simple pink dress. Chief Adebayo frowned. "Just one?" Zara nodded. "Yes, sir." He smiled. "No, my dear. You are getting 5 new dresses, new shoes, and whatever else you need." Zara's eyes widened. "Really? Of course," he said. "You deserve it." Zara was overjoyed. She couldn't believe that her life had changed for the better. Meanwhile, Amina was struggling. She had no job, no money, and no family to turn to. She rented a small room in a poor area and spent her days wandering the streets, looking for work. But luck was not on her side. There were no vacancies. She spent her nights crying herself to sleep. She missed Zara and their old life, but most of all, she hated who she had become. "How could I have traded my daughter's love for wealth?" she thought. "And in the end, I lost both." 6 months passed. Then one Sunday afternoon, Chief Adebayo and Zara were sitting in the garden when she turned to him. "Sir," she said softly. Chief Adebayo smiled. "Yes, my dear? Can you forgive Mommy?" Chief Adebayo's smile disappeared. "After everything she did to you?" he asked, looking surprised. Zara nodded. "She wasn't always like that. Before she met you, she was a good mother. She just made a mistake." Chief Adebayo sighed. "She didn't just make a mistake, Zara. She hurt you. She treated you like nothing." Zara looked down sadly. "I know." Chief Adebayo watched her. Even after everything, she still loved her mother. That night, he thought about it for a long time, and in the morning, he made a decision. 2 days later, Chief Adebayo and Zara drove into a poor neighborhood. Zara looked around, confused. "Where are we?" she asked. "You'll see soon," Chief Adebayo said. They stopped in front of a small, dirty compound. Sitting outside, looking thin and weak, was Amina. "Mommy!" Zara shouted. Amina turned sharply, shocked to see her daughter. "Zara!" Zara ran to her and hugged her tightly. "Mommy, I missed you!" Amina wept. "I missed you too, my baby. I am so sorry." Chief Adebayo watched them silently. After a while, Amina looked up at him. "Sir, I don't deserve this. I don't deserve forgiveness." Chief Adebayo sighed. "You're right, but your daughter still loves you. That is why we are here." Amina wiped her tears. "I have nothing left." "You have one last chance," Chief Adebayo said. "Come back home." Amina froze. "What?" "But know this," Chief Adebayo warned. "You must never hurt Zara again. If you do, you will lose her forever." Amina fell to her knees and cried, I swear I will never hurt her again." Zara grabbed her hands. "Mommy, let's go home." Moving on, Amina worked hard to earn back her daughter's trust. As for Chief Adebayo, he never forgot what she did, but he forgave her for Zara's sake. One evening, as they all sat at the dining table, Amina looked at her daughter. "Zara, can you pray for us?" Zara smiled, clapped her hands, and prayed, "Dear God, thank you for bringing my family together. Thank you for giving Mommy another chance, and thank you for Daddy, who showed us kindness. Amen." Amina's heart filled with gratitude. She thought she had lost everything, but by God's grace, she got a second chance. The end. Unlock the mystery that will change everything. Subscribe and like to discover the secret that everyone's been searching for.